What's up everyone, it's ENDYMION, and there's been some rather explosive developments surrounding Disney and what's going on behind the scenes. Besides this proxy war, I'll also report on how Adam Driver confirmed Disney never had a plan at all when it came to Star Wars. And I'll also give you an update on Hasbro and how Baldur's Gate 3's original team has all but been laid off due to this. Also, if you don't mind, I've been playing a lot of God of War lately, so I'll be using some footage. Anyway, let's get started. To begin, let's look at a few articles starting with the Wall Street Journal, where billionaire Nelson Peltz is now teaming up with former Disney executive Jay Rasulo in order to take back Disney from the hands of Bob Iger. To catch you up to speed quickly, Disney fired Marvel Studios executive Ike Perlmutter earlier this year during their 7,000 job layoffs in order to save the company. And I put that in quotations because it clearly didn't save nothing. Perlmutter got pissed since he was the one who sold Marvel to Disney. And now they threw him away, so Perlmutter has went out and gotten help from another billionaire named Nelson Peltz. And this Peltz guy owns a fund management company called Treon, which is worth way more money than I care to even count. Anyway, Perlmutter and Peltz have teamed up to use their combined 33 million shares in Disney's stock in order to strong-arm themselves into getting seats on Disney's executive board. Of course, Bob Iger doesn't want this to happen because he wants Disney to become a propaganda machine, and Peltz has now went out of his way to assemble his own Avengers-like team of old man billionaires in order to take Disney back. One of these guys is Jay Rasulo. He was the CFO of Disney from 2010 to 2015, but he's worked at Disney for decades operating their parks and everything financial-wise at Mickey Mouse's kingdom. Jay has a lot of experience in running Disney's money, and during his tenure as chief financial officer, Disney was prospering like never before. The only reason why he left was because Bob Iger and his board around 2015 decided to not renew Jay's contract, so he left. And obviously, Disney had 4 more very profitable years after Jay. But like every other company around the time when it was late 2019, it was almost as if every major company suddenly got the memo to reject what made them great and start pushing propaganda instead. And following that cultural shift, Disney has become the slop fiend we all know today. Perlmutter and Peltz really want to own Disney outright and force their influence into throwing CEO Bob Iger to the curb. But, according to these reports, which I cross-reference with others such as this article from thatparkplace.com, the battle for Disney's soul is getting bloodier as the days go by. But the more I investigate and read, it's insane when you're presented with cold hard numbers just how bad Disney is being operated these days. Nelson Peltz's company Treon released an official statement and it's bad, and I quote, "Disney has woefully underperformed its peers and its potential. For shareholders, this subpar performance has destroyed value. Disney stock has underperformed the stocks of Disney's self-selected proxy peers and the broader market over every relevant period during the last decade and during the tenure of every non-management director. Furthermore, it has underperformed since Bob Iger was first appointed CEO in 2005, a period during which he has served as CEO or executive chairman, directing the company's creative endeavors in this role for all but 11 months. Disney shareholders were once over $200 billion wealthier than they are now. Unfortunately, the board and CEO appear to have no conviction that things will get better. The non-management directors collectively own less than $15 million of Disney stock, and Mr. Iger has sold the vast majority of his ownership stake built up primarily through share-based compensation. More than $1 billion of Disney stock, leaving shareholders alone to face the daunting reality of a complex turnaround in a rapidly evolving industry. More generally, Disney appears no closer to adequately addressing the compensation misalignment, governance, and succession issues that have plagued the company for decades. The root cause of Disney's underperformance, in our view, is a board that is too closely connected to a long-tenured CEO and too disconnected from shareholders' interests. The board, we believe, lacks objectivity as well as focus, alignment, and accountability." End quote. Oh my god, there is a lot to unpack there. Jesus. For starters, the fact Treon just flat out stated that Disney's past few years have resulted in over $200 billion in losses is ridiculous. That's genuinely crazy to me. How the fresh hell is the board okay with it? But as I've been reporting for months now, that Disney has all but turned into a propaganda machine is true, since Treon confirms that the entire Disney board, as in the people who actually make the decisions, only own around $15 million in its entire stocks. Let me tell you how insane that is. Imagine your bank account is operated by a small group of people who collectively only own like $15 of your entire worth. Yet they get to decide what to do with all of your money, and you can't say or do anything, as these people just spend and lose everything that you're worth. And the fact Treon just stated that Bob Iger doesn't even own stocks in Disney anymore solidifies what everyone's been saying. He's not in this company anymore for making money. He suspiciously sold what he owned of Disney and then decided to turn it into a propaganda slot machine. My conspiracy theorist brain is starting to churn, and it makes me feel as if Iger is pushing agendas based on orders he's been given by globalist elites. There's really no other explanation that makes any sense as to why this is happening. No wonder this board doesn't care if they lose billions, because ultimately whether the company does well or not, it's not really their loss. My god, this is a mess. The fact I know now that the board only owns $15 million of Disney's entire business, this makes this so much clearer to me now. And it's also not surprising that Peltz and Perlmutter are having one hell of a time getting into Disney's board, because it's a small club of individuals who are clinging their butt cheeks tight and holding hands like a human shield around their leader, Bobby Boy Iger. Treon further details exactly how much damage has been done, and good lord dude, they said, tens of billions of shareholder value has been lost. The metrics are saying that Disney's 2024 and 2025 fiscal performance are going to be even worse than now, and their future growth is cooked. Disney's board of idiots then try to draw their trap card and claim everything is hunky-dory and there's no issues at Disney. Everything is fine, they said in a counter statement. Disney has an experienced, diverse, and highly qualified board that is focused on the long-term performance of the company, strategic growth initiatives including the ongoing transformation of its businesses, the succession planning process, and increasing shareholder value. But we all know that's bullshit, because if there's anything this board is, it's not focused or qualified, since they've lost Tony Stark fortunes worth of money already. And when they say their board is diversified, I just laugh, because I've been saying this for months now that diversity means nothing when it comes to profitability. I don't care if Disney's entire board is only men or women, as long as the people leading the company are making quality products and putting consumer interest first before propaganda. And clearly when it comes to Disney, it's a board full of idiots who just continue to lose money and will not stop when it comes to pushing the message anyway. But I think the words that are the most important to hear is someone who genuinely loves Disney and worked their entire life in order to make it great. That man is Jay Rizzullo. If you were a millennial or you were born in the early 2000s, you can probably thank Jay for a lot of movies and things being made that you ended up loving. This is a guy who actually cares about not only making Disney profitable, but making content for families. As YouTuber Valiant Renegade puts it, there's no one better to lead Disney right now than Jay Rizzullo, as he represents the old ways of content creation within Hollywood, where things like artificial intelligence, or shit like ESG and woke identity politics were never really a thing, and instead content was made by passionate individuals who loved what they did and made things that resonated. So it's no wonder why Jay was kicked out of Disney following their massive rebranding in the late 2010s. The Disney of today couldn't exist if someone like Jay was still there, and that's really what this massive proxy war is all about. Either the old ways return and brings the world's greatest content empire back to its senses, or, as Valiant Renegade puts it, Disney's puppet board will just continue to leech off of its shriveled corpse until there's nothing left. Valiant Renegade said, and I quote, "Bob Iger is terrified of what Nelson Peltz could do if he's successful in his proxy fight to win a board seat at the Walt Disney Company. For years, Bob Iger has managed to create a puppet board that sings in perfect harmony to whatever song Bob Iger so conducts them to. Nelson Peltz and Treon could certainly throw some discord into that, and that's something Bob Iger doesn't want." Jay Rizzullo started as an executive at Disney in 1986. He has overseen far more of the major developments and building of Disney than Bob Iger ever has. And Rizzullo intimately knows not only how Disney functions from an operations standpoint, but how Disney functions intimately from a financial standpoint and what it is capable of. There may be no more qualified board candidate than Mr. Rizzullo for the Walt Disney Company, but I'm sure Disney and Bob Iger will bring in their media spin machines to tell everybody how Rizzullo is a disgruntled former employee. Just like Nelson Peltz and Ike Perlmutter, Jay Rizzullo is a problem for Bob Iger. He threatens Iger's godlike status in the Walt Disney boardroom, but the reality is that Jay Rizzullo has more experience in running Disney than every single member of the board of directors combined, save perhaps for Bob Iger himself. And as we all know, Bob Iger absolutely will not abide anybody with a different opinion on running Disney than him, end quote. So, Jay is honestly the living embodiment of old Disney. The kind of visionary who was there when things like The Lion King or Beauty and the Beast were made, so it's no wonder Iger and his puppet board are afraid of him. Because Jay Rizzullo is the closest thing we have to that old Disney magic, and it's great to hear that he's willing to come back and save things. I know some viewers might think I do this sort of content to grift, but I just want to say that I resonate with someone like Jay. Like him, I genuinely love Disney. I really do. I, like many of you, grew up on their movies and programs, and I do feel as if my view of the world and the values I hold have been to some capacity inherited by the stories I saw as a child thanks to this company. All I want is for Disney to return to its glory, and it pains me that things I love like Marvel, Star Wars, or the classic films of my childhood are all being torn to pieces and thrown into the fire by this new age worldview. It doesn't bring me pleasure knowing that future Marvel properties are likely going to be garbage, or that I don't look forward to new Star Wars projects either. As someone who enjoys and loves these things, I want to be excited. But the sad reality is that I happen to live in a time that will hopefully be a cautionary tale of what not to do when people look back in the future. These practices have to be eliminated, if not for us, then for future generations. And like I said, Disney has had actual genuine cultural and behavioral influence over myself and likely many others growing up. The media that we consume, especially at a young age, it shapes us. And the truth is that the Disney content of today is not only devoid of magic, it has no soul. And I feel bad knowing there's generations of children today being raised and watching these soulless products, as I wonder what sort of values these propaganda-ridden atrocities will instill on impressionable minds. And that's why, not only for Disney's sake, but I see what I and many others do to be a necessary reaction to the ever-growing abyss that keeps going. If we don't stop this madness, the darkness will only corrupt what was once just and right, but it can and will ruin future generations. And I fully understand and accept that regardless, Disney will always be owned and operated by billionaires with investments. Such is the nature of the business, but if Nelson Peltz, Ike Perlmutter, and Jay Rizzullo at least have the common sense to bring it to its former glory, I know many don't have hope that things can get better, but at least here on this godforsaken channel that's full of cynicism and sarcasm, I actually still do have hope, and I really do things can get better. Well, that is unless your name is Adam Driver, who recently stated that Disney are idiots and kept changing the story, which I mean, of course they did. According to Driver, who was on the Rich Eisen show, he explained that his character Kylo Ren was supposed to be the opposite of Darth Vader. Let's listen to Adam Driver himself explain this on the Rich Eisen show.
Did you know that at least you're playing Vader 2.0? Like, at least did you know that as conceptually?
I did, yeah. And I had an overall arc that in mind that he wanted to do, which, you know, then changed. But his idea was that almost the opposite journey of Vader, where Vader starts the most confident, the most, committed to the dark side. And by, the last movie, he's the most vulnerable and weak, and he wanted to start at the opposite, where this character was the most confused and vulnerable, and by the end of the three movies would be most committed to the dark side. So I tried to keep that arc in mind, regardless if that wound up not being the journey anyway, because it changed, obviously, as we were shooting.
Yeah, right.
Right, but I was still kind of focused on that.
When did it change?
Well, with Ryan, he took it into a different direction, but still it kind of still tracked with the character. Then the last one, it changed into being, about them and the dyad and things like that.
And then again, so you...
And kind of evolving into Ben Solo. That was never part of it.
That wasn't either?
No.
Because
Well, Ben Solo, he was Ben Solo from the beginning, but
Right.
it was never a version where we actually see Ben Solo when I first signed up for it.
This annoyed me because, like I just explained with Disney and how they keep ruining things, I genuinely thought that Kylo Ren was really interesting as a character. By far, out of the new trilogy, he's the only one I actually liked watching and felt that he was actually interesting. But of course, Disney, like always, ruins everything, and like Driver explained, the concept that he was supposed to become super evil in the third one would have been interesting. But instead, of course, this is modern Disney Star Wars, and these idiots listen to these annoying shippers on social media. You know, the ones who wanted Rey and Kylo to end up with each other because these shipper fans are usually teens, who write fanfiction in their rooms like Miss Marvel or something. It bums me out knowing they ruined what could have been a great idea like this. And like Driver confirms, the change in leadership between Rian Johnson and Abrams and catering to annoying teeny bop shipper teams ended up ruining everything. Then again, we already know that Disney never had a master plan for this story anyway, and they literally just let Rian Johnson take what Abrams made and just go in whatever direction he wanted. And it shows, because those 3 movies make no sense thematically in any way. And the fact they had to pivot and bring back Palpatine was incredibly lame. Oh, what could have been. Even Daisy Ridley back in 2020 confirmed that they had no idea what they were doing. She said, and I quickly quote, "At the beginning they were towing with an Obi-Wan connection. There were different versions, and then it really went to that she was no one. Then it came to episode 9 and JJ pitched me the film and was like, oh, you're Palpatine's granddaughter. I was like, awesome. And then 2 weeks later he was like, oh, we're not sure, so it kept changing. Even as we were filming, I wasn't sure what the answer was going to be," end quote. Oh my god, dude. How the hell do these people get paid to make these things is my question. You're in your final movie in a trilogy, and you don't even know what the lineage of your main character is as you're filming it, mind you. The sequel trilogy, for me anyway, will go down in history as one of the biggest misses in Hollywood ever. They fumbled Rey, they managed to screw up not having the original 3 on set together again, they ruined Kylo Ren. God, I hate Disney Star Wars. And this is why we need to purge these people in charge so these things can never happen again. Finally, I just want to do a follow-up to my previous video. The TLDR is Hasbro, which owns Dungeons & Dragons, laid off around 2,000 people this year. And this unfortunately also hit a lot of the people at Wizards of the Coast who worked with Larian Studios on Baldur's Gate 3. So in case this sounds confusing to you, Larian Studios, as in the game devs who made Baldur's Gate 3, they were not laid off. Since they are not owned by Hasbro, they are a private company that its CEO and game director of BG3, whose name is Swen Vic, owns. Vic paid a licensing fee to Hasbro in order to use the Dungeons & Dragons IP in order to make Baldur's Gate 3. But the people that Vic worked with at Wizards in order to conceptualize this game, its themes and core concepts, they were let go by these layoffs. So, Larian is fine, but the people with common sense at Wizards are gone, which is not good. But the fumbling of employees at Hasbro, the billions lost by Disney, and the ruination of Star Wars and its legacy and new characters, all of it falls on the people in charge of these companies. And by pushing identity politics, running IP into the ground like Star Wars and Marvel, which Disney did, which then made demand for toys and those brands plummet, led to Hasbro, who works with Disney a lot, losing a ton of money because their products became worthless. It's all a giant cycle that has to work or stuff like this happens. But ultimately, that's where we're at right now. The hostile takeover has gone Demon Core nuclear. Adam Driver admits Disney is incompetent and Hasbro suffers due to their own woke nonsense, and because Disney has driven their core brands into the ground. And with 2024 upon us, will things get better or worse? I guess time will tell. But until then, dear viewer, thank you for watching, and like and subscribe and share the video if you enjoyed it. Have a wonderful day, thanks to my patrons as always, and keep asking questions. I'll see you in the next one.